You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening, everybody. We are obviously back again, and it's a little bit different this evening due to guest mix-ups. So we have just thrown a curveball into this evening, and we're going to do a discussion show. And I am joined by the one and only, obviously, co-host Carl Hutchinson. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good, yeah. Just, it's a shame that obviously Claire couldn't get on the show this evening, but we'll aim to get her on very, very soon again. But yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of a chat this evening, and so if there's anybody listening in the chat room, have got any questions, post away, and we'll be able to try and answer that. You can get in contact with us on the various different social media channels. But the easiest way and the more interactive way at the moment is to join us in the chat room while listening to the show and asking us questions there and then.
Yeah, and with tonight's show, we want the chat to be interactive like it usually is anyway, because this is going to be an interactive show. Like, me and Carl have got his own belief systems on tech and his own intuitions and things like that, so it would be a good idea to hear everybody else's points and views in the chat room as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, we both have been in the field. We both investigate in a very different way. We both started in very similar situations, getting into it. You started off on your tech path, then started to go more down the feelings, the spiritualist side, and using that way. And I carried on down the path of technology because I needed to validate the stuff that I was seeing and experiencing. And the only way my mind at that particular moment in time was to obviously look at equipment to give me some sort of confirmation of what I'm seeing, hearing, feeling that is happening. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion, Steve.
Yeah, and that's what's good, because you obviously have your reasons for using tech. Like, I know you obviously you do pick up on things and that, but you're, like you say, you're more of a tech guy, and you use tech to try and validate anything paranormal, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's a lot of text in about 3 sentences. There was probably about 5 or 6 texts there. So, but yeah, I think everybody, if you're doing something on a weekly, daily, week in, week out basis, like going into alleged haunted locations, after time you're going to start to pick up on things personally. Because, yes, I'm into the equipment side of things, but I've always said I think the best bit of any paranormal equipment, any paranormal researcher out there, the best bit of equipment is the human body, because your human body does near enough everything that some of the equipment out there does. So temperature, static, etc., your human body is picking up on it. So you've got to, I believe in my body is now sort of in tune with these sort of places, because you're going in, day out. So you start to pick up on things. I wouldn't say I'm, how do I put this? I wouldn't say that I'm becoming more sensitive or I'm becoming more of a medium or anything like that. It just, your body becomes sort of, you know what you're looking for over the years. You know that certain things have a certain pattern, and when your body reacts in a certain way, you know things are going on. And then I then also use the equipment side of it to validate what I'm feeling myself.
Yeah. And it's the same with me, like, obviously, because I, like you said, to begin with, I use more of my own senses now. So I, my mind's gone what I was going to say. But because, like you said, because like what tech, because it's the same with, like, we know if you use your own senses and not tech, we know going into a building if it's cold, if there's a spirit next to you, and obviously with you using your tech, it's exactly the same concept, but it's tech.
Yeah. But what, like I was saying, I will go into places where I'll have the equipment handy, I'll have it in cases, or I'll have it in my jacket or whatever. So if I go into a room, which, because as you know, when you go to a location, you have a walk around, you do some baseline readings, you just see what the place is like. So you get an intuition of what the building's like. You do it in your way, by you just wander around and you see what you're sensing, feeling, etc. I'll go around and then see if there's like a window that's causing a draft, or if there's power in the room that's kicking off an EMF spike, or if there's like the floorboards are uneven, that then produces the boat effect, etc., or confined spaces, all those sort of things you take in. And then when you actually go into those areas again, from a tech point of view, you sort of know what sort of the baseline readings are.
Yeah.
So if you're going into going into a particular room, into an area that suddenly feels different to what it was before, and then my equipment is confirming there is a temperature drop or temperature rise, or there's, using an altimeter, there's a draft coming through the room, but there's no reasons why there is, because you know where, because you've gone through the room before, you're then looking at it in a different way. But you do it a different way to what I do it. So you do exactly the same, but I use equipment and myself to validate my experiences.
Yeah. And it's good, like, in anyone who uses tech, I think, like, it's a good, like, me personally, obviously I won't use tech anymore, but I think it is a good idea when someone's sensing something, and because it's happened to me before where I've sensed a spirit next to me and someone's got the K2 and it's gone off, and that's the reason that you have to do a baseline sweep, because if the K2 was going mad or anything like that and you knew there was electrical wiring, do they call it? Or
electrical wiring kicks off an EMF field, will kick off K2 meter. Me personally, I wouldn't use K2 meters for any sort of proper validation. I would use, say, a mel meter, which will give me a digital reading for the milligauss levels, the EMF field. Also gives me an ambient temperature, and then I've got other bits of equipment which I can use to give me moisture, humidity, wind speed, etc., in a location.
Yeah, if nobody knows Carl, I think he has near enough every single tech gadget near enough on the planet.
Well, because I'm into that, and the way my mind works is, everybody if there's a regular listener that listens to the show, they know I'm obviously into the tech. I don't go out and buy everything, because when I first started, I bought everything you could possibly get, every possible gadgets, from cat balls to bouncy balls to this, that, and all these different types of EMF detectors, the ones that are based around the dog sensors that produces like a high-pitched squeal and all this sort of stuff. And then after time, when you start getting into the equipment, you then start realizing that a lot of it out there, is kind of a waste of money. So now I buy stuff which, over the years, I know what I'm looking for. I know what I want to get out of it at the end of the day, what I want to use the equipment for. So I will cherry pick what I buy. Yes, I still buy equipment. Yes, I still get a lot of equipment sent to me to road test, evaluate, do reviews on, etc., etc. But when it comes to my personal equipment, I'm very kind of choosy at the moment. I've just bought this week. I've just bought a load of new environmental sensors. So I've got a new Geiger counter. I've got a new multi-environmental sensor which picks up on humidity, moisture, wind, all that sort of stuff. Because I want to start looking at that area again. I've done it in the past. So when you're in a location and then because if you can validate if there's, like, say, a drop in temperature when you capture an EVP, and every time there's that sort of drop in that temperature or the environment changes and you're capturing other evidence on multiple bits of other equipment, that's more interesting to me than, say, a hit on a REM pod, on just one REM pod.
Yeah, and I noticed, obviously, because I investigate with Carl a lot, I noticed you kind of use the tech more, like you say, what reads the temperature and things like that, don't you?
Yeah, because any location you go into, yes, you can have all the bells and whistles possibly in the universe, but unless you know how to use it correctly, and you want to know, and you have a good idea of the false positives that every bit of equipment can do, so you're not jumping to conclusions when you're getting a reading or the equipment is reacting in a way which is actually a false positive. So you have to understand that. But then I also look at locations, because as people take the mickey out of me when I say I've only bought a few bits and I end up bringing like 5-6 cases, etc. If I brought all of my equipment, I'd need a transit, and it'd probably take me 4 hours to get the equipment into the building. I think a lot of people out there do, especially when they first started in the field, they do go slightly overboard. They'll buy every possible bit of gadget, which isn't wrong, but then they'll basically take 4 hours setting up their equipment, and then they literally will only investigate for like an hour and a half, and then 4 hours to break it all down. So now I look at the location. Me personally, I look at the location, and I look at what we're trying to get out of the investigation or the research that we're doing, and then tailor the equipment I bring to that. Yes, there's bits of equipment that I will take on any investigations, like a mel meter, digital recorders, etc., which I'll take into any location. But for instance, there's no point in bringing like equipment that can be, if you're doing an outside location, there's certain equipment that there's no point in taking to that, because there's no point in having sensitive digital recorders or listening devices, etc., because you're getting too much outside influence. So you would then you would tailor what you bring to that. And same thing about going into, say, tunnels and stuff like that, or castles. You tailor what you take. And you I kind of people watch for anybody that's been on investigation with me, and you'll say exactly the same. I will sort of sit back for the first hour or so and just watch what's going on, where we're going, see how people react, see what people are picking up. And I'll probably just have my mel meter on me. I won't, but then I will, when we say break for the first break, I'll know what bits of equipment I'm going to take into those areas again.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you, Sam? Because obviously, like you said you use more of your senses.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell the people, like, say, the reasons behind that you're doing that? Because I know when I first met you, you had some tech, and you were using that tech. Then all of a sudden, you just dropped that and just stayed with the camera. Now you're sort of got the camera, but you're also using your own skills, personally wise, on investigation. Tell people about that.
Yeah. So, like Carl says, if nobody knows, you should. If you're regular listeners, you should know. I started off with the usual beginner's kit, shall we call it? Spirit box, digital voice recorder, night vision camcorder, and I don't know really what it was. I think it was because obviously, like you, I'm not saying I'm sensitive or anything like that. The same as you, but the more I investigated, like you, I opened up more, so I felt when a spirit was near me, and when the temperature changes, it's your own. I think it's your own belief systems. Like everyone has, said about your own belief systems and things like that.
But Sam, I would say you are probably getting that way. I would disagree with what you just said a minute ago. I think you are more sensitive to it now. From when I first met you, when you literally were just focusing.
Oh, I know. You were
focusing just on your camera. I think a lot of people out there that will investigate have their little crux that they use while they investigate. And a lot of people I see, when they're filming, will basically concentrate on that little display screen because they feel safe, because they can see what's going on. As soon as they come away from that camera screen, you're in the dark. Yeah. You then can't see what's going on. So you then have to rely to other things. I think people kind of get pigeonholed into, say, video recording because they feel more comfortable, more safe for doing that because they can focus on the video record screen. And I think you did that and when you first started.
Yeah, I did, because it was kind of like, I was a bit like, I'm going to admit it, but I was kind of a bit like scared of the dark, one of them in a place. And that's what I was.
Be ashamed on that, Sam, isn't it? Because I think there's everybody.
I know, right?
To be honest, I'm some very hardened investigators who will openly admit it when they first started, and I'm quite happy to admit I used to climb up people's backs. I was scared of my own shadow when I first started. Like, somebody walked near me in the dark and I'd jump out, I'd scream and run, try and find the nearest exit. So there's nothing wrong with saying you admitting you're scared about it.
Yeah, and I don't, because obviously the more at the times you investigate as well, it's that. To begin with, I think with some people it's that factor of getting used to seeing in the dark, because obviously it's different, if you're at home and you're watching TV or you're in the dark, that's different. But I think with some people, and I think it was with me as well, because it's I'm going to say supposedly haunted location, and it's that fear factor, I think, because we've seen Hollywood movies and things like that, and it's the fear of something might jump out at you or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically what's hiding in the dark.
And necessarily, nothing might not be hiding in the dark. Like,
but when you're talking about the Hollywood effect, it's that Hollywood effect, and when you talk about paranormal. Paranormal, it's a scare factor. It's the fight or flee scenarios, etc. So if that's your only knowledge before you go into an event, or go into an investigation, or go into any type of thing that you do in life, you're going to have preconceptions. So yes, if you think that the boogeyman is hiding in the every time the lights go out, you're going to be apprehensive when you go into an actual proper investigation.
Yeah,
but like you going back to what you saying, it's like I noticed when you started then becoming aware away from the camera, and then you were basically just working with yourself. And basically working what was going on with yourself. And I noticed on a couple of investigations that we were doing, you were sort of sensing more stuff, like,
Yeah.
and you were vocalising it, which was good.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people will be worried or scared that if they say, "Oh, hang on, I'm feeling like this," people are going to take the mickey out of them. Which, as we've always say on investigations, when I do stuff with the general public, first timers, newbies, or whatever you want to call them, virgins or whatever, there is no silly questions. There's no, if you feel something, if you have an experience, do not be scared to speak out, because there could be somebody else in the group that is feeling exactly the same. Oh, well, I'm not going to say something because I'll feel embarrassed. And then you can basically both validate your experience.
Yeah. Because, Carl will agree with this, guys. What he's on about is because many a times I've been like dead quiet and not said nothing, and now he kind of notices, because I either put my head to the side, like look round, like there's an invisible lamppost, and then Carl's like, "Sam, you all right?" And then that's when I kind of like, I can see, see a shadow or anything like that. So
I think that's it. It's when, particularly in this field, when you're going out and you are investigating with the same people, you sort of pick up on when somebody is acting a little bit different to what they normally are. And I go back to experiences, and particularly when I work with MJ. I know how I've investigated with MJ so many times. I know how she works. I know how her body acts. I know how her mannerisms. I know when she's picking up on something. Same with yourself, Sam. You start acting out of character. You need somebody that you trust in the field, in an investigation, that will have your back, that if you do get into trouble, that they can get you out of it, or they can do something because they know you. And you're exactly right. When you first started, you were very, very quiet. You wouldn't say anything. You then start, and we all noticed, and there's other people out there that work with you, they notice now certain ways that you will look, like you say, you'll go into certain mannerisms and stuff like that. And I'm exactly the same. And you'll know this, and people that have been on investigations, I get that, as I describe it, the sticky mouth syndrome, where I'm like this. And it feels like I can taste like metal in my mouth, and I can taste like blood. That I don't know where it comes from, because it's not blood, but that is one of the first things that I know. As soon as I get that sticky mouth and that sort of taste, I know that there's obviously, I'm picking up on something in the room. That's when I will go straight to the equipment and start using the equipment to validate what's happening. And you do exactly the same with you on your side. Is if somebody's reacting to something, or then they're experiencing something, you will try and tune yourself in and see whether you can feel it, experience it. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find now, because what makes it good as well, going back to the it's good to speak up. It's good to speak up as well, because especially if you're on a public one where you've got certain amount of group split in between one building, because you build, we've said this before, obviously I'm sure like people who have been on shows on the network before have said it, who run public events, if something happens and someone speaks up, then if happens to another person in the group, it gives you that kind of like relationship / friendship connection with them. And I think also it makes them at ease as well.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing worse. I did public events for nearly 10 years. And there's nothing worse when you're doing a public event and you say, right, you're doing something with the general public and you've got this group and literally nobody talks, nobody interacts, nobody is even interacting with other people in the group. or deadly silence, and then you ask them to do an EVP session, or you ask them to call out, and nobody's willing to do it. And I would describe that for spirit or for energy, ghost, whatever you call it, whatever your views on it is. There's no way anybody's going to be hanging around that sort of atmosphere. I always describe it as, what are you going to do if you walk into a pub and it's deathly silence, nobody's talking, there's no music on, everybody says, literally, doesn't say a word when you walk in, there's no vibe in the place. You're going to turn on your feet and you're going to head in the other direction and find another venue. But if you walk into a pub that is got a good vibe, there's music, people are talking, and it's interactive and it has that nice feeling, you're going to hang around, you're going to stay more. And I think, in my views, I think that is what spirit will do, because whatever you were like in life, you're going to be like in death when you cross over. And that's the thing. It's social. It's if you've got a good vibe and you're having, like, when you walk in between areas, you're having a bit of a bit of banter, a bit of a building your own energy up in the group. That helps. It gives them something to feed off.
Yeah, and like you say, if you can walk into a building or a pub or anything, and if it's happy, you could be having the most rubbish day ever. Like, this is obviously nothing to do with the paranormal, really, but you could be having the most rubbish day ever, and you'll walk into a restaurant or pub or anything like that, and if it's all like a happy atmosphere or stuff like that, then you become happy.
Yeah, exactly. It's the energy you walk into, and that helps. And that's where you work differently to the equipment side. Is you can sort of pick up on that, can't you?
Yeah, I certainly can. So, in little mini version, because I don't want to, talk forever on this subject, but now sometimes, like, I'll walk into a location, I can walk into a particular room and I get anxiety. I can walk into a particular room and I get happiness. I can walk into a particular room and I get sadness.
So you're saying you're becoming more in tune and probably more like an empath. So you're picking up on emotions in the room, whether that's the atmosphere or emotions in the location, or the emotions and physical well-being of actually somebody around or people in the group that you're with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the difference between equipment and the way you work, is because there's no bit of equipment that is going to tell me somebody's emotions unless I've got them electroded up and I'm monitoring brainwaves, heartbeat. Basically got a lie detector on them or everything. I've got them like wired up like a good one. There's no way I can use it. There's no to my knowledge, there's no handheld bit of equipment unless you have got somebody wired up to the hill that is going to be picking up on those sorts. So that's where you have and people that work like you have a one up on the equipment side. Is there are certain things that people will pick up on that equipment currently cannot pick up on, and emotions of either the location or people is one of them.
Yeah, and it's like, because sometimes I see, call noises, sometimes I see spirits as well, and yeah, you've got like the SLS and other devices, but with me, in my personal opinion, this may, but anyway, in my personal opinion, and if Kerry's listening, she'll probably agree, but there's nothing better than seeing, I know, because it's struggling to obviously prove that you've seen a spirit's made you see them or whatever they do to make you see them. But there's nothing better than your feelings picking up on a certain spirit and then they just show themselves to you. And I don't know, because there's not really any tech out there what's, like,
yeah,
Go on.
I know what you're saying, and I know myself, you, Kerry, have had these conversations, and personal experience, personal validation, personal intuition is great, and I'm not knocking that one little bit. But where I come from, in my area, what I deal with, yes, I've experienced stuff that wasn't on equipment, that my personal experiences. But what I want to do, I have more questions than answers. So what I want to do is I want to validate your personal experience using something that, I don't want to use the word scientific or whatever, because this is an unproven science, what we do. But I want to basically be able to validate it, data-wise, document it, these personal experiences. So if somebody else has one, or we can then be looking at can we recreate them? Is it psychosomatic? Are you, as in the people there, causing your thought patterns to cause things to happen? And all those sort of stuff. So yes, what you say is great, but I haven't got that ability. I've had
I know what you're saying.
But what I want to do is I want to be able to somehow use what I'm good at to validate what people are experiencing. So if somebody's saying they saw a person, I want to basically see whether I can document that. If they've seen something, they physically seen something. I've seen stuff, and I want something to be able to validate it. So I'll use like normal camera, infrared, IR, full spectrum, SLS, or anything possible I can think of to try and validate what you're experiencing. And I think that's where teams need to look at themselves, because yes, if you've just got all tech, there's nothing wrong with that. But then you're also missing out on the stuff you guys pick up, like the personal, the feelings, the seeing, the mediumship side of it, and vice versa. If you've just got a team that basically is just all mediums or this, that, and the other, and they won't use equipment because they don't want to use equipment, they're also missing out on something, because potentially you could be then validating these experiences via some equipment. So it's catch-22. I think it's a 50-50 split, if I'm personally honest, on investigation, because you've seen me work. Sometimes I won't even take any equipment out, because I want to try and see if I can validate, instead of concentrating on the equipment or doing experiments, I want to experience what people are experiencing.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to do that. You've got to go in it with an open mind. That's the key. You've got to go in an open mind and look at it, but also not jump to conclusions that everything that happens on an investigation is paranormal, because I've seen that so many times.
Yeah.
So I think it's a 50, but it is fascinating, and we've discussed this several times, and this is the reason we're doing this discussion show this evening. Is it splits the industry? Equipment, no equipment.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see what people in the chat room feel. I'd be also interested to hear what Kerry thinks of it as well, or anybody else that's listening, and because everybody has a view on this. I've seen arguments kick off between people about equipment, no equipment, and this, that, and the other, and I'm just like, we're all in it for our own paths, our own goals. And why should I stand there and poo-poo somebody else because they don't believe in this or don't believe in equipment? And they should have the same respect for me because I don't have the ability. I'm not a medium. I can't see into the dark without using night vision glasses or whatever goggles. I want to use every possible way possible to be able to move this paranormal field on, because we can't keep stuck in a rut, which I think the industry has been recently, and it just gets into the whole para-unity and cooperation, etc., etc. And I think we need to be, which we're not going to go into, but I think what we need to be looking at is if we're going to move it on, we've got to start having more respect for each other's opinions.
Yeah.
So, because we're just going to be going around the same things, the same this, that, and the other, and equipment's rubbish. There's no scientific proof. Yes, you're absolutely right. There's no scientific proof that any of these bits of equipment that I have can pick up on anything. No science, because it's a pseudoscience. Nothing's been proved. But if you know what the equipment does, i.e. EMF, if you know that everything, or Geiger counter, like everything has a back down radiation level, or light sensors, full spectrum cameras, EVPs that record on different sound levels, that we can prove on. That in science, you can prove that something that you can't hear with the human ear can be recorded on different levels of sound. That's science. We're not saying it's paranormal. That's just science that is proven. So why can't we then use that into the field? I've seen people say, why are you wasting your time and money on this? You should go back to being old school. Why should I? I don't say to you, no, you shouldn't do old school, you shouldn't do this, that, and the other. I respect your wishes. You work like that. You've got to give me some respect that I work like the way I do.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's the whole of what you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable,
absolutely, you've got to be comfortable in what you do.
Yeah,
you can always see the people who put it on. I'm not talking about fake. I'm talking about people in the industry. You can normally fall into certain brackets. You've got the super believers that are the ones that basically won't. Everything that they experience is paranormal. Everything. I'm talking everything, and everything is just paranormal. And I think there's nothing wrong with being like that. If that's your belief, I respect that. And then there's others, and there's all these different types of things people that do stuff. And we're sort of going off on a sidetrack, so I won't go into too much detail.
Yeah, because the chat room's a bit full. Well, it's not a bit full, but there's a few comments in there. So
okay, what's the comments? Who's
firstly, obviously, it's Kerry, Richard, Daryl is in there at the moment. I don't know if anyone else is, but yeah. Obviously, discussing. Kerry has some views, by the way, which we were expecting anyway, because Kerry's the power of knowledge. She's probably like sat at home now, like, oh my god, did she just say that? But anyway.
Sam, stop getting sidetracked. What's going on in the chat room?
So the first comment off Kerry is, I agree. It would be great for tech validation, for intuition / psychic abilities, so you can build up data for further research.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing. It's using both sides of it to produce, or not to produce, to document the same goal.
And another comment she put was, it needs a multi-purpose perspective view, so tech, psychic, history, etc., etc., to build a picture up for validating each other in an investigation.
Yeah, exactly. I like going in. I like to go into locations blind. I try not to know much about it. Obviously, it gets slightly difficult when you go into certain locations more than once. And there's obviously a lot of locations that I've investigated on more times. So it is getting more difficult to do that going in blind. But yeah, you need to. What I like to do, I know that on the teams I work with, or when I'm working with, say, MJ, and I'm working with all the other teams that I've worked with over the years, they have that equal blend. So you have the mediumship, you have the history knowledge, you have the equipment side. So you've all got that, and you can all bring in your ideas, your information, to try and get to see whether if there's a common goal or common experience and common validation from it.
Mm-hmm. And the last comment she said is on the subject. I find it fascinating when tech shows something abnormal when I'm working.
I need to know a little bit more. I don't know. So, in what way are we talking? I don't know whether she's talking about when we were at Kelvin and Hatch and Kerry was doing a. Let me see if I get the rock science correct. The crystal pyramid or something. And I was using an SLS camera and I was picking up on stuff that she was experiencing. I don't know whether she's talking about that or something else. So, Kerry, if you're listening, just pop it in there and then see, and then we can see whether we can comment on that.
She says yes, that occasion.
Okay, so anybody that listened to the recap show on the Calvin and Hatch, and I do apologise. I'm not afraid with the technical terms, but I think Kerry was doing a crystal pyramid type thing where she was different crystals at different places on the ground, doing her work and bringing in the energies and all that sort of stuff, which she is amazing doing, and it is fascinating to watch. And all I was doing, as I like to do, I just sit back, just monitoring the situation, and I was field testing an SLS camera. And unlike the SLS cameras, the ones you can buy, which are based on the Xbox 360 camera, this is a proper SLS camera, which is designed slightly. It gives you environment information. So you've got different colours for heat, cold, and it doesn't do the false positive tracking. So if you've got a chair and a lampshade behind, which looks like a shoulder and head, it will map a figure. This bit of equipment I was testing doesn't do that. And Kerry was doing her work, and every time she went anywhere near the crystals, the colour of her changed to like either a cold or a hot. And that she was then experiencing stuff, and I was kind of validating. She was saying, "Oh, I can feel this over here," and I was seeing the colour changes on the screen. So that kind of validates her experience, what she had was going on, her experiences, and what her knowledge was sort of coming through. And I was validating it for my own self because I could physically see it on something that I understand a little bit more with reference to what's on the screen.
Yeah, she was doing the crystal grid.
Crystal grid, no, that's it. One of the crystals looked like a pyramid. That's probably where I got it wrong.
So questions now from Richard.
Yep.
The first one's to you. Is there any equipment you wouldn't use if you thought the environment wasn't suited for it?
on an investigation or research investigation I would do, I would not use K2s. K2s have a lot of false positives. I like to use equipment which take out some of the false positives, such as a K2 does. I like using the tri-field meters, which gives me more play around to work out whether it's microwave, etc., etc. Equipment I won't use. There's a long list of it, Richard. There is a long list. I've field tested a lot of equipment. I don't like using phone apps. Various different phone apps. I don't. Even if you say you've got your data switched off, you've got everything possibly switched off. Modern smartphones are still going to be receiving stuff. So until they bring out something that you can use that is not like that, fair enough. But I don't like using phone apps. I don't like using those EMF detectors called, I think, Ghost Pro and Ghost Meter and Ghost Meter Pro, which are like little things which are supposed to light up. And you get yes or no, one flash for yes, two flashes for no. A bit like using a K2. I wouldn't use those because they have a lot of drawbacks on those. Very expensive, high quality sound recording EVP digital recorders, such as some of the high Zoom models, things like that. They basically have equipment inside which balances out the sound. So you're not actually getting a true representative of what's going on. You're just getting a high quality recorded sound thing. So certain locations they're not right for. So yeah, there's so many bits of equipment over the years that I've tested, bought that I wouldn't. I have a garage full shelves at the back of my garage of equipment that over the years I've bought, tested, and that now and just stuck it in the back of the garage.
There we go. I'm sure he'll tell you later on.
I need an hour to go through everything.
I know. Another one to you. Would you ever consider? Does Carl ever consider and measure barometric pressure during an investigation?
Do I record it? Yes, I do.
So, I ever consider and measure? So yeah, I'm guessing.
I have got instruments that picks up on barometric pressure. Funny enough, that's what I've just bought a new detector that does exactly that, which arrived yesterday. And yes, I do use that because when you get a drop in that, you pick up, your human body picks up on certain things. Dropping in biometric pressure can cause reaction in the environment. So yeah, I do record it. I have occasionally when I'm doing investigations, I have those little data loggers, which I'll just leave in rooms, which are like USB, and what they record are temperature, humidity, biometric pressure, static, etc. And they'll take a reading, say every 20 minutes, half hour, or an hour, and then I can put that into a computer, download, and I can then see if there's anything that when, say, we're in the room and a medium's picking up on this or other bits of equipment are going off, and I can then see if there's any correlation, i.e. there's certain environmental changes that happen at the same time things happen.
There we go. This is a question to me, but I guess you can answer this as well. So, obviously, Richard again says, when you rely on intuition, how do you tend to sense it in a general? Is it a general gut feeling? I don't know.
That's definitely a question for you.
I know. I don't know, to be honest, Richard, because it can vary. Like I said before, sometimes I can get anxiety. But sometimes I do get a gut feeling when something's about to happen or stuff like that. And yeah, I'd get a load of sensations. It can be anxiety. I mostly like when a spirit is in my personal space, I call it, I get super anxiety because I'm like, you're in my personal space, like back off, like you would if any person you don't know would come right up to you or stood right next to you. So, yeah. I know that's shortest answer ever, but yeah, no.
It's you're spot on. You're telling people out there, and answering the question is when you feel something, when something is up close and you feel that, this is how you feel, and you know that is a sign of using your body for that purpose, because you're picking up on that. Your body is reacting to something is unseen to others, but you are picking up on it. So yeah, you do use that is exactly how you react time and time again when things like that happen, when things get too close to you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change from that. Doesn't change from location to location. That's how you react in any location.
Yeah.
And everybody else does as well. So, but everybody reacts differently when it comes to that type of feeling.
Yeah. It's one of them hard to explain though as well though, because I have a certain sensation when I know when there's a child, when there's an adult, when there's like, no, I'm not saying malevolent, but like peed off spirit and
I think because this is where it gets tricky, and it's the same thing about equipment. People have the same tricky bits, is because it's not. How do I put this? You're picking up personally how you're feeling, how your body's reaction. Somebody standing next to you could be having the same feelings, but their body is producing a different reaction.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you're picking up on. It doesn't mean you're not picking up on the same thing. It's just your bodies are reacting differently. It's the way your belief system. It's the way you're in tune with your body. So you could be experiencing the same thing, but your body is telling you in different ways.
Yeah. We've got a few minutes left. Another question from Richard. Is there any piece of equipment you would like to get your hands on? If so, what would you use it for?
I'm pretty lucky at the moment. I've got everything that I want at the moment. A few years ago, and I've been in a lucky situation. I managed to get my hands on a digital dowsing SLS X-Cam produced by Bill Chappell. I've been very lucky over the years to get to know some of the best equipment manufacturers and makers and people that make equipment, and I've been lucky enough to be able to test some of these bits of equipment. I think, if I'm being completely honest, there is one bit of equipment which I would love to basically have, and that is it's the new FLIR thermal imaging video camera, which is all singing, all dancing, can record like a normal video camera, and it'll basically records two images. So you have the normal image, so you can put a night scope on it, and so you have the night vision, but you can also have daylight. But then you'll also have the thermal image, so you can overlay the three images. But sadly, I don't have £55,000 lying around to pick it up. I have been lucky to be able to test that. Somebody trusted me to test it. So yeah, if money was no object, yeah, there's things like that.
If we won the lottery.
Yeah, if there's things like that. I would also like to have a thermal imaging drone camera. But sadly, I haven't got 10 grand lying around for one of those either. So yeah, if there was money, no object. Well, there are equipment, but the day-to-day equipment I use regularly, I've got probably everything I need. But I always tinker around. I'm always look at different things, coming up with different ideas, going down different rabbit holes, and upgrading, tweaking, playing around with my equipment. Like I say, I wouldn't say that there's a week going by that I wouldn't have bought something to tweak around with, to look at Tesla coils, stuff like that. So yeah, it's an ongoing process. It is an addiction for me.
So there we go. There's the answer to your question.
Uh-huh.
Hello. Is there anything else? I'm here still.
I thought my signal went a bit weirdy, so it made a funny noise at my end, and I thought my signal dropped out.
Ah.
It's coming up to the end of the show anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got a few minutes. So is there anything else?
Yeah. So who we got on next week, Sam?
Yeah, you put me on the spot, don't you?
Oh.
Bear with.
Yeah, so while Sam's checking her diary, just want to thank everybody that's tuned in, listened in. Hope you enjoyed it, whether you've listened in live or whether you have listened in afterwards, because obviously everybody knows that after the show goes, you can always listen back. Everybody that's interacted in the chat room and asked us questions, thank you very much. It's always appreciated, and hopefully you've been happy with the responses to the questions. And if there's anything you want to ask us that you've not asked tonight, do let us know. And if there's any other tech questions that you do have, on Saturday at 7 p.m, it's another chance for you to grill the what's it's out of me when I do my Q&A session at 7 p.m. on the Parasearch Network Facebook Live page. So if there's any questions that you think after the show, think, should have asked him that. Tune in at 7 p.m. on Saturday. So yeah, thanks again. It's been enjoyable. Different type of show than what you're used to on a Thursday night. So Sam, who we got on next Thursday?
We have Liqueur Paranormal. So that is, if anybody who doesn't know who Liqueur Paranormal are, that is Alex, Corinne, and Lee.
Cool. Interesting.
Yeah, and a few plugs to do with the network, of course. If nobody knows, we have a book out now called The Book Parasearch. You can find it on...
Mine arrived earlier. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Mine arrived earlier.
You can find it on Amazon, or if you're in the group page, everyone's posting links and things like that. And tonight is your last chance to get subscribed to the newsletter, or unfortunately you'll have to wait till February's newsletter. Just saying that if you want it, obviously subscribe to the newsletter. It's simple. It takes like a minute. You go to www.parasearch.org and there's a little subscribe button. You click on that, stick your email address into it, and then bam, done. you
Well,
subscribe.
not spam done.
Bam done.
We don't spam anybody. So.
No, I don't know why I said spam, but bam done. There we go.
I know what you mean, but I'm just thinking in case somebody was like, "Oh, hang on, put your email in and you get spam." Oh, no, we're not.
No, you don't. So that is it for another Thursday show.
Yeah, good show. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And if there's any feedback or there's any particular people that you want to get on the show or you want us to discuss on anything, do get in touch with either myself or Sam on the network. But also remember that our Parasearch Radio from every night of the week from either 8 p.m. on a Tuesday to 9 p.m. on most other weekdays, and on Saturdays and Sundays as the occasional special show. We bring you all the latest news, topics, guests. Get in touch, get interactive with us, and we will see you next week. Good night.
Thank you for listening.
Good night.
Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.